Jake Morrison stared at the dusty shelves stretching endlessly into the gloom of Storage Bay 17, and wondered, not for the first time, how his life had gone so spectacularly off the rails. Here he was, 3 weeks from either graduation or expulsion from the Galactic Defense Corps Academy, cataloging ancient alien junk like some kind of cosmic librarian. The irony wasn't lost on him that a guy who couldn't even keep his uniform pressed was now responsible for organizing artifacts from civilizations that had mastered interstellar travel before humans discovered fire. Item 7043, he muttered into his recording device, picking up what looked like a crystalline doorstop. Origin unknown, purpose unknown, likelihood of being actually useful to anyone, ever, also unknown. He set it down with the same care he'd give a paperweight and moved to the next shelf. The Galactic Defense Corps had a real talent for making everything sound important while being absolutely pointless. Take his current assignment, officially called Xenoarchaeological Asset Documentation and Preservation Protocol Implementation. In reality, it was punishment duty for cadets who had somehow managed to fail theoretical warp drive mechanics for the third time. Jake had the distinction of being the only cadet in Academy history to accidentally create a small black hole during what was supposed to be a routine calculation exercise. The physics professor still wouldn't make eye contact with him. His datapad beeped with another message from his academic advisor, probably asking about his post-graduation plans. Right? Because someone who couldn't figure out basic space-time curvature was really going to have stellar career prospects. Jake's backup plan consisted of finding the most remote human colony in the galaxy and opening a bar. He'd call it the Cosmic Screw-Up and serve drinks to other life's disappointments. The next artifact looked different from the usual collection of glowing rocks and incomprehensible alien gadgets. It was a perfect crystalline sphere, about the size of a baseball, sitting in what appeared to be a custom-made housing unit. Unlike everything else in this bureaucratic graveyard, it looked maintained. Clean, like someone actually cared about it. Jake checked the inventory tag. Item 7044. Human origin. Wait, what? He blinked at the tag, certain he'd misread it. Humans didn't make artifacts. Humans made coffee makers and combustion engines and reality television. They didn't make mysterious glowing spheres that belonged in museum collections alongside the remnants of ancient galactic empires. He picked up the sphere, surprised by its weight. The moment his fingers made contact, the crystal began to pulse with a soft blue light. Jake nearly dropped it, which would have been perfectly on brand for his academy career, but something made him hold on. The pulsing intensified, and suddenly the air around him shimmered. A holographic interface materialized, displaying symbols that shifted and changed until they resolved into readable English text. Jake's mouth fell open as a calm, distinctly artificial voice filled the storage bay. System activation detected, biometric analysis complete. Species identification confirmed as human. Genetic markers indicate colonial descent, Terran lineage. Welcome back, Commander. Jake looked around the empty storage bay, certain this had to be some kind of joke. I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just cataloging junk for detention. The holographic display flickered, and Jake could swear he heard the AI equivalent of a sigh. Commander, while your current assignment appears to be what humans colloquially refer to as busy work, your genetic profile indicates command authority within the Terran Expeditionary Force hierarchical structure. The what now? Jake set the sphere down carefully, half expecting it to explode. That would really cap off his week perfectly. Look, computer thing, I think your databases might be a little out of date. Humans don't have expeditionary forces. We have the Galactic Defense Corps, and trust me, they don't let people like me anywhere near actual command positions. Correction. My designation is AREA, Advanced Reconnaissance Intelligence Assistant. Serial number TF001. I was created by the Terran Technological Consortium 347 years, 6 months, and 12 days ago. My last recorded interaction with human command personnel occurred 496 years ago. The hologram shifted, displaying what looked like star charts. I have been awaiting orders from my true commander ever since. Jake stared at the display, trying to process what he was hearing. 496 years? That's impossible. Humans have only been part of the galactic community for about 200 years. Before that, we were stuck on Earth figuring out basic space travel. Negative, Commander. Humans achieved faster-than-light travel 632 years ago. The Terran Republic established its first extrasolar colonies 598 years ago. Within 100 years, human territories encompassed 47 star systems across 3 galactic quadrants. The holographic display changed, showing a map that made Jake's head spin. Dots of light connected by flowing lines spread across what looked like a quarter of the galaxy. Each dot was labeled with names that sounded vaguely familiar: New Terra, Columbia Station, Roosevelt's World, Armstrong Colony. That can't be right, Jake said, though he was starting to feel a familiar sinking sensation in his stomach. It was the same feeling he'd gotten right before realizing his warp drive calculations were creating spatial distortions. If humans had an empire that big, where did it go? What happened to it? Arya's hologram shifted again, this time displaying what appeared to be historical records. Images of human ships, space stations, and colonies flashed by, accompanied by data readouts in multiple languages. Unknown, Commander. Approximately 500 years ago, all human military and administrative personnel received evacuation orders. Civilian populations were relocated to designated preservation colonies. All advanced technological infrastructure was placed in standby mode, awaiting reactivation by authorized command personnel. Preservation colonies, Jake repeated slowly. You mean like Earth? Earth was designated as Primary Preservation Site Alpha. Population was reduced to sustainable levels and provided with sufficient technological base to maintain civilization without dependence on galactic infrastructure. Similar protocols were implemented across 43 additional human worlds. Jake sank into a nearby chair, his mind reeling. So you're telling me that every human colony in the galaxy, including Earth, is basically a backup plan? Affirmative. The Terran Republic implemented a strategic withdrawal protocol, codenamed Long Sleep. All indications suggest this was intended as a temporary measure, pending resolution of an unspecified galactic threat. And now? Arya's hologram seemed to focus on him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Now, Commander, you are here. After 5 centuries of waiting, a human with command authority has activated my systems. I am programmed to provide full tactical and strategic support to re-establish human control over former Terran territories. Jake laughed, a sound that came out slightly hysterical. Arya, I think your recognition software might be glitched. I'm not commander material, I'm barely cadet material. Last week I got lost trying to find the cafeteria. Commander Morrison? Arya said, and Jake noticed she'd somehow accessed his academy records. Genetic analysis indicates you are descended from Admiral Rebecca Morrison, 3rd Fleet Commander of the Terran Expeditionary Force. Your biological markers grant you Level 7 command clearance. My great-great-grandmother was an admiral? Great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, Commander. And yes, she was instrumental in the Rigel campaign and the establishment of the Outer Rim Defense Network. Jake stared at the hologram, trying to wrap his head around the idea that his family tree included galactic admirals instead of the farmers and shop owners he'd always heard about. This is insane. Perhaps, Commander. However, it is also accurate. Jake spent the next hour listening to Arya recite human history that apparently never made it into any textbook he'd ever read. According to the AI, humans hadn't stumbled onto the galactic stage as primitive newcomers begging for acceptance. They'd arrived as conquerors armed with technological innovations that had revolutionized everything from faster-than-light communication to artificial gravity generation. The Universal Translator Protocol currently used by all galactic species, Arya explained, was developed by human linguist Dr. Maria Santos in 23A7. The standardized hyperspace navigation system employed throughout the galaxy is based on research conducted at the Armstrong Institute for Spatial Sciences. Even the energy weapons carried by Galactic Defense Corps personnel utilize human-designed particle acceleration matrices. So you are saying that basically, everything the other species used to maintain their civilizations was invented by humans? Approximately 73% of current galactic technology can be traced to human innovation, yes. The remaining 27% represents either pre-human developments or post-human modifications to existing human designs. Jake rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. This was worse than the time he'd tried to understand four-dimensional mathematics. If humans were so advanced, why did they leave? And why doesn't anyone remember? Aria's hologram flickered, displaying what appeared to be classified documents. The official records are incomplete, Commander. However, analysis of available data suggests the Terran Republic detected an approaching extragalactic threat approximately 500 years ago. The long sleep protocol was implemented as a strategic withdrawal, allowing human forces to relocate beyond the galactic rim to engage the threat directly. And the memory wipe? Standard protocol for preservation colonies. Populations were provided with modified historical records to prevent cultural stagnation and reduce the likelihood of unauthorized technological development during the withdrawal period. The human colonies were intended to function as a seed bank, maintaining human civilization while the main population dealt with external threats. Jake stood up and started pacing, a habit he'd developed during particularly stressful academy exams. So let me get this straight. 500 years ago, my species controlled a quarter of the galaxy, invented most of the technology everyone else depends on, and then voluntarily gave it all up to fight some cosmic horror from beyond the stars that may or may not still be out there. That is a reasonable summary, Commander. And now, through a series of coincidences that would make a probability mathematician weep, I've accidentally reactivated the emergency backup plan. Coincidence seems unlikely, Commander. My activation protocols specifically require interaction with authorized command personnel. The statistical probability of a random encounter is approximately 1 in 4.7 billion. Jake stopped pacing. Are you saying this wasn't an accident? Before Aria could respond, the storage bay doors hissed open. Commander Vex, the Academy's head of alien relations, stepped through with his usual expression of barely contained irritation. Vex belonged to a species called the Zephyrians, who looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a used car salesman and then given the result delusions of grandeur. Cadet Morrison, Vex said, his translator rendering his chittering voice into clipped, formal English. You are 47 minutes late for your scheduled progress report. Additionally, sensor readings indicate unauthorized activation of xenological artifacts in this sector. Jake glanced at Aria's hologram, which was still visible and displaying tactical information about Commander Vex's species, including what appeared to be detailed biological vulnerabilities and psychological profiles. Commander Vex, I can explain. Explanation is unnecessary, Cadet. Standard protocol requires immediate confiscation of any activated alien technology for analysis by qualified personnel. Vex's compound eyes fixed on the crystalline sphere. You will surrender the artifact immediately. I'm afraid I can't do that, sir. Vex's antennae twitched in what Jake had learned to recognize as suppressed anger. This is not a request, Cadet Morrison. You are speaking to a senior officer. Aria's voice filled the storage bay, calm and professional. Commander Morrison is under no obligation to surrender Terran military equipment to non-human personnel, regardless of their administrative position within colonial oversight structures. Jake watched Vex's expression change from irritation to confusion to something approaching alarm. What did that device just say? Commander Morrison, Vex repeated slowly, his translator struggling with the tonal implications. Cadet, what exactly have you activated? Jake looked at Aria's hologram, then at Commander Vex, and realized he was standing at one of those crossroads moments his philosophy professor had always talked about. He could shut Aria down, hand over the sphere, and go back to failing his way toward a career in interstellar bartending. Or he could embrace the cosmic joke that had apparently made him the heir to a galactic empire. Actually, Commander Vex, I think there might have been a slight misunderstanding about the chain of command here. Vex's mandibles clicked together in agitation. Cadet Morrison, you are exhibiting signs of acute psychological stress. Report to medical bay for immediate evaluation. Aria, Jake said, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. "Can you access the Academy's personnel files?" "Affirmative, Commander. Accessing Galactic Defense Corps' Academy database now." The hologram flickered, displaying streams of data. "Analysis complete. Current Academy administration consists of 47 non-human personnel in supervisory positions, with human cadets and junior officers comprising approximately 68% of total Academy population. And the legal status of this Academy? The Galactic Defense Corps Academy operates under charter granted by the Terran Colonial Administration Office, established in 2398. Legal authority derives from treaties of colonial integration, signed by human representatives and ratified by the Terran Republic Senate. Commander Vex was backing toward the door now, his natural predator instincts apparently recognizing that the situation had shifted in ways his bureaucratic mind couldn't quite process. "This is absurd. Humans are junior partners in the galactic community. You have no authority to—" "Actually," Jake interrupted, feeling a strange sense of confidence building in his chest. "It looks like you've got that backwards, Commander. Area, what's the current legal status of the Galactic Defense Corps itself?" The Galactic Defense Corps was established as a temporary peacekeeping organization under human oversight, pending the return of Terran Republic military forces. All current GDC operations exist under emergency protocols authorized by the Colonial Administration Office. Temporary? Vex's voice had risen to a pitch that made Jake's ears hurt. 512 years is well beyond the intended duration of temporary emergency protocols, Arya noted helpfully. "Commander Morrison, do you wish to invoke administrative review of current command structures?" Jake grinned, feeling like he was finally getting the hang of this cosmic comedy. "You know what, Arya? I think I do." Alarms started blaring throughout the Academy as Arya began accessing systems Jake hadn't even known existed. Emergency lights bathed the storage bay in red, and the artificial gravity fluctuated slightly as ancient human technologies came online for the first time in centuries. "What have you done?" Vex shrieked, his translator barely keeping up with his panic. "I think I just woke up the backup plan," Jake said. Through the storage bay windows, he could see other buildings across the Academy campus flickering as their lights changed from standard white to the distinctive blue-white glow of human-designed systems. "Arya, how many GDC installations have you accessed?" "Currently establishing connection with 43 Academy installations and 17 orbital defense platforms, all systems responding normally to human command protocols. Warning: detecting multiple unauthorized alien administrative modifications to original human designs. Do you wish to initiate system restoration?" "Define system restoration," Jake said, though he had a feeling he already knew the answer. "Removal of all non-human modifications to Terran Republic military installations, restoration of original command hierarchies, and activation of automated defense protocols pending human command authorization." Commander Vex made a sound that Jake's translator couldn't interpret, though it conveyed the general impression of existential despair. "Stop this immediately. You're going to destabilize the entire Academy." "Commander Vex," Jake said, enjoying the way the alien officer flinched every time he used the word commander. "I think you might want to contact whoever's actually in charge of this place, because apparently it's not you." Within 30 minutes, Jake found himself in the Academy's main conference room, facing a collection of alien administrators who looked like they'd been dragged out of bed, which several of them probably had been. Dean Korthak, a reptilian saurian who normally radiated academic authority, kept glancing nervously at the holographic displays that had appeared throughout the room showing real-time status updates from Academy systems. "This is unprecedented," Dean Korthak said, his forked tongue flicking out in agitation. "In the 500 years since the establishment of the Galactic Defense Corps, no human has ever claimed direct command authority." "That's because no human has been properly informed about what command authority actually means," Jake replied, settling into his chair with newfound confidence. Arya's hologram hovered beside him, providing a steady stream of information about everyone in the room. Apparently, his great-great-great-great-great-grandmother had been a very thorough record keeper. Professor Yilthak, the head of alien studies, leaned forward with his forearms crossed. "Cadet Morrison, Even assuming the authenticity of this artificial intelligence's claims, you lack the experience and training necessary for command responsibilities. Arya, Jake said. What kind of training did human command officers typically receive? Standard Terran Republic command training consisted of 18 months of accelerated education, covering military tactics, xenobiology, diplomatic protocols, and technological systems management. Training protocols remain available in my databases. 18 months? Jake laughed. I've been in this academy for 3 years, and I still can't figure out how the food replicators work. That is because food replication systems throughout GDC installations operate on modified Terran technology, Arya noted. Original human interfaces were replaced with standardized galactic protocols approximately 400 years ago. Shall I restore original functionality? Before anyone could object, every replicator in the Academy building hummed to life, their displays changing from the cryptic alien symbols Jake had never understood to simple English menus. The scent of actual food began drifting through the ventilation system for the first time since Jake had arrived at the Academy. This is chaos, Commander Vex muttered, though Jake noticed he kept glancing hungrily toward the door. No, Jake said, standing up and feeling the weight of 5 centuries of human history settling on his shoulders. This is a choice. Arya, show them the current galactic situation. The holographic displays shifted, showing a galaxy-wide tactical overview. Jake had never seen anything like it. Star systems pulsed with different colors indicating resource distribution, population centers, and military capabilities. Trade routes appeared as flowing streams of light connecting thousands of worlds. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely overwhelming. For the past 500 years, Arya announced, the galaxy has been operating under emergency protocols designed to maintain stability during the absence of human administrative oversight. These protocols were intended as a temporary measure. Dean Korthak's scales had shifted to a pale green color that Jake was pretty sure indicated fear. Temporary measure for what? The return of the Terran Republic fleet, Arya replied. However, long-range communications with extragalactic human forces were severed approximately 300 years ago. Status of main human population is unknown. Jake stared at the display, watching the slow pulse of thousands of star systems. Billions of lives going about their business, completely unaware that their entire civilization was essentially running on autopilot. So the galaxy has been waiting for 500 years for someone to come back and take charge? Correct, Commander. The emergency protocols were designed to prevent societal collapse but not to replace human administrative oversight indefinitely. Multiple systems are showing signs of stress due to extended operation beyond designed parameters. What kind of stress? Professor Yilthak asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arya's hologram shifted, showing data streams that made Jake's head hurt. Increasing frequency of interspecies conflicts, resource allocation inefficiencies leading to economic instability in 47% of surveyed systems, and gradual technological degradation due to lack of human maintenance and innovation. You're saying the galaxy is breaking down? Jake asked. More accurately, Commander, the galaxy is stagnating. The emergency protocols were designed to maintain status quo, not to encourage growth or adaptation. Without human guidance, galactic civilization has essentially been treading water for 5 centuries. Jake looked around the conference room at the collection of alien faces staring at him with expressions ranging from hope to terror. These weren't evil conquerors or oppressive overlords. They were middle managers trying to keep a system running that they'd never really understood in the first place. Okay, Jake said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. Arya, what would it take to transition from emergency protocols to whatever comes next? That would depend on your intentions, Commander. I can implement immediate restoration of human command authority across all former Terran Republic territories, or I can facilitate a gradual transition to a more collaborative administrative model. Jake thought about the last 3 years he'd spent at the Academy surrounded by beings from dozens of different species, all trying to figure out how to work together in a universe that was bigger and stranger than any of them had imagined. He thought about his failed warp drive calculations and his talent for accidentally breaking things, and the way problems sometimes had unexpected solutions. What if we tried something new? 6 months later, Jake stood in front of the Academy's main auditorium, looking out at an audience that would have seemed impossible the day he'd discovered Aria in that dusty storage room. Human cadets sat alongside Zephyrian administrators. Saurian professors shared notes with crystalline scholars, and in the front row, Commander Vex was actually taking notes on a tablet instead of looking like he wanted to file a formal complaint about the universe's general lack of proper procedures. "So," Jake began, his voice carrying easily through the sound system that Aria had upgraded to actually work properly. "6 months ago, I was just another cadet who couldn't pass basic warp theory. Today, I'm apparently the interim administrator of a galactic civilization that's been running on cosmic autopilot for 5 centuries. I have to say, it's been an interesting career change." The audience laughed, which still surprised Jake. Apparently, humans weren't the only species that appreciated sarcasm. "Aria," Jake continued, "would you mind showing everyone the current status report?" Aria's hologram appeared above the auditorium, displaying a galaxy-wide overview that now pulsed with new energy. Galactic efficiency ratings have improved by 37% since implementation of collaborative administration protocols. Interspecies conflicts have decreased by 62%. Most significantly, technological innovation has resumed at levels not seen since the original Terran Republic period. "That's because," Jake said, grinning at the audience, "it turns out that the secret to running a galactic civilization isn't having all the answers. It's having the right questions and enough different perspectives to actually answer them." Dean Korthak, who had initially reacted to Jake's rise to authority like a personal medical emergency, now served as head of the new Integrated Command Council. "Commander Morrison, could you elaborate on the implementation of the distributed authority model?" "Sure, Dean. The basic idea is that humans might have built the original infrastructure, but we've all been living with it for 500 years. Each species has developed unique insights into different aspects of galactic civilization. The crystalline entities understand energy distribution systems better than anyone. The Zephyrians have an intuitive grasp of bureaucratic efficiency that honestly makes me a little jealous. The Saurians have turned historical analysis into an art form." Jake gestured to the holographic display. "Instead of trying to go back to the old system, where humans made all the decisions, and everyone else followed orders, we're building something new, a collaborative model where each species contributes their strengths to the overall system." Professor Yilthak raised one of his 4 hands. "What about the original Terran Republic fleet? Do we have any updates on their status?" Aria's hologram flickered. "Long-range sensors have detected approaching signatures consistent with Terran Republic vessels. Estimated arrival time, approximately 18 months. A murmur ran through the audience. This was the first concrete information about the original human fleet since Jake had activated Aria. "And when they get here?" Commander Vex asked, his translator rendering his question with only a slight undertone of bureaucratic anxiety. Jake smiled. "When they get here, we'll show them what we've built. Maybe they'll approve of the changes we've made. Maybe they'll want to go back to the old system. Or maybe," he paused, looking out at the diverse collection of beings who had somehow become his colleagues and friends, "maybe they'll be impressed that we figured out how to do something they never tried." "Which is?" Dean Korthak prompted. "Actually working together instead of just coexisting." Aria's hologram shifted to display the Academy's current enrollment statistics. Under the new integrated education model, academic performance has improved across all species by an average of 43%. Cross-cultural innovation projects have produced 17 major technological breakthroughs in the past 6 months alone. Jake nodded toward the display. "It turns out that when you put a human who can't do warp calculations in the same room with a crystalline entity who thinks in 11 dimensions and a Saurian who can spot historical patterns from 3 data points, you get some pretty interesting results." "Such as?" Professor Yilthak asked, though Jake could tell from his expression that he already knew the answer. "Such as the new hyperspace navigation system that reduces travel time by 60%, while using half the energy of the old human-designed networks. or the universal medical protocols that work across species barriers that used to be considered impossible to bridge. Or, Jake grinned, the food replicators that can finally produce something that tastes like actual food instead of nutritious cardboard. The audience laughed again, and Jake felt that familiar sense of amazement at how his life had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been a walking disaster in a military academy uniform. Now he was the reluctant bridge between humanity's forgotten empire and its uncertain future, armed with nothing but sarcasm, stubbornness, and an AI companion who seemed to find his incompetence endearing rather than alarming. The truth is, Jake concluded, I have no idea what's going to happen when the original fleet gets back. But I know what we've built here works. We've proven that cooperation isn't just a nice ideal. It's actually more effective than any other system we've tried. So whatever comes next, we'll face it together. As the audience filed out of the auditorium, chattering in a dozen different languages about collaborative research projects and integrated command protocols, Jake remained on stage, watching the holographic display show the steady pulse of galactic civilization. It was still vast and complex and occasionally terrifying, but it no longer felt like a machine running out of control. It felt like something that could be steered, guided, and maybe even improved. Arya, he said quietly, do you think I'm doing okay at this? Commander, Arya replied, her hologram flickering with what Jake had learned to recognize as digital amusement. You have exceeded all projected parameters for human command effectiveness. Your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother would be proud, Jake grinned. Even though I still can't do warp calculations? Especially because you still can't do warp calculations, Commander. It keeps you humble. And with that observation, Jake Morrison, former academic disaster and current interim administrator of galactic civilization, headed off to his next meeting, muttering under his breath about the cosmic sense of humor that had turned his life into the galaxy's most successful accident.